books in front of the bookshelf today. Like the other day I was over there, now I'm over here. It's like it's a room or something. Hello everyone, my name is Matt. I am a humble follower of Christ, and today I want to talk to you about discipleship. We've been talking about taking small steps in discipleship, recognizing that we are humans, that there's these muscles that we have and we have to exercise them, we have to flex them and do reps with them to really get good at something, right? We don't show up to the gym day one and hit 405. Like it's not something we do. It's not that we have excuses really to like not do something, but we don't have to meet some sort of standard or ideal like immediately. And this holds true when it comes to spiritual practices, right? Like the expectation that we're gonna be perfect or we're gonna be consistent and 100% good at something the first time around, it's farcical, it's not reality. And in the last video, we kind of talked about how we have to do reps at something to get better at it. If you haven't watched that video already, I'll do the stupid YouTuber thing and like point up here and say that there's gonna be a card or something. Click on it, go watch it, pause here, come back, all the things. In that video, I talked about really how we're trying to bring practical closer to ideal, how we're trying to bring who we are right now, what we're doing, all those things closer to the nature of Christ, closer to Jesus. And I said that we really needed to know two things to like actually accomplish that task, where we are right now and the ideal, Jesus. Duh. But like identifying those things is necessary. It is something, it's a task that we have to do. For right now, I want to focus on that first one. Where are we currently? So how is your relationship with Christ? Again, this is necessary for the process. The same question can be asked about like my fiance, for instance. Like, how is my relationship with my fiance? And I can give you very detailed, thorough, thought through answers, right? I can say the same thing about like, how's your relationship with your parents? How's your relationship with the people at work? How's the relationship with your best friend? We can replace the subject of that sentence and really aim at that relationship. We can really aim at that thing because that question inherently comes with volume, it comes with weight. It is a little scary because it gives us this opportunity to kind of like self-examine. We have to really be honest to like get through that. We get to identify where there's good and where there's bad. I think the reason we get scared to self-examine our relationship with Christ is honestly just because of like maybe external appearance, like optics, or even that we have to like actually sit with it. Like we feel targeted by the exercise. We feel like it's punitive, like we're being punished. But if we were to like take this on the point of a relationship, right? Like that is what this is. If we were to take the practical, the current us, to the ideal, Christ, and pushing the two things together, like it is a relationship. Like we're trying to build that, and friends, in relationship, there's conflict. Anybody in like a healthy relationship is going to tell you that it is not that there is conflict. Conflict, yes, is scary, and that's the tricky part. The conflict scares us. That exposure scares us. However, we have to move through that conflict to get into deep relationship. That is what brings us into a good and healthy place, and that fear is valid. It is scary. I'm sorry, I'm clapping. That fear is valid. It is scary. But for this task, it is necessary. It is a thing that we should expect. It is a thing that we're going to have to live with. We are volunteering ourselves to be a little uncomfortable. I think to properly do this exercise, we really only need to approach it with two things. First, vulnerability. But being vulnerable is necessary for true, healthy, deep relationships. It feels weird sometimes. But again, if we lean into the shame and the fear and we kind of like avoid the conflict, we also avoid the closeness and the real relationship with God. Again, it is not that we have conflict or that you have conflict. It is that you are working through that conflict. It for sure is not that your starting point is rocky. If that was true, how is there salvation, right? It is not that your starting point is not the best. It is, or not ideal. We've already covered that. We should not expect that. It is that you are starting, right? Another one that we hear a lot is that it is not that you are angry with God. The Bible is full of stories with people who are angry at God. The Bible is full of stories. Go read Psalms. The Bible is full of stories of people crying out to God saying, I'm mad. It is okay that you are mad. That's fine. It is not that you are angry. It is that you are working through that anger, that you are going to the source of that and saying, hey, I'm mad. Let's work through this. That's the point. I would contend to do all that, we have to be a little vulnerable. We have to open ourselves up to like letting someone else in and seeing the real stuff, to see the down deeps, to see us naked, if you will. The catch here is that Jesus knows you. He knows your sin, he knows your shame, he knows your addiction, he knows your failures. However, he also knows your accomplishments, your joys, your loves, and everything about you. He knows you. The Creator knows you. The punchline is that he knows you, and he loves you, and he's actively loving you. This wasn't a past tense thing or a future tense thing. It's now. It's not after you've cleaned up. It's not after you've gotten it right. It is currently in your stuff, in wherever you are, good or bad. He loves you. That is our Savior. The second thing we really need is humility. This is arguably harder than vulnerability. Like, humility requires a different degree of commitment. See, we need to approach this task with vulnerability because that is what makes a relationship. To be vulnerable with, to give trust in, to open it up into a place where you could possibly get hurt. That's what forms relationships, right? We need that, but we need humility because that's what gives Christ the authority in that relationship, right? It's what makes him Lord. It's important when we self-examine to understand that we are not the target of ideal, right? That we are not the thing that we are trying to become more of. Again, we are current and trying to get closer to the nature of Christ. We are being formed in that through his grace, right? So as we're self-examining, it is important to recognize that Christ is the ideal, that we are not. Obviously, there will be another video after this. I'm setting it up really great, that we will talk about the ideal and how that is Christ. But in the context here, what I'm trying to say is, where are we placing authority over our own lives? And in my opinion, if we're vulnerable with Christ and we give him the authority to actually do something in our lives, this starting point becomes a lot less scary. Looking at where we are currently becomes less scary when we understand and anticipate that this is a starting point and not the final product, that Christ is the ideal, and the ideal loves us where we are right now and is calling us into his nature, that he is the authority and he's pulling us towards him. I've said this already. Jesus knows you, he loves you, and our goal is to get closer to him. Being vulnerable and humble lets us admit when we are wrong or where we were wrong. It allows us to see where we currently are doing fantastic or where we have done fantastic. And I think it's important to celebrate those things. It's important to celebrate just as it is important to hold ourselves accountable. If you hear one thing today, I want you to hear that we cannot have affirmation without accountability, and we cannot have accountability without affirmation. Those two things are joined together. That authority that allows someone to speak affirmation or speak accountability, even to ourselves. Those are important things, and they cannot be pulled apart, because then we get a lie. Then we get pride and we get self-destruction. This is where leaning into the relationship with Christ, remember, there is no condemnation because Christ is in you and you are in him. You are a new creation. That was a lot of words, and as we go along and as there's more of these videos, right, we'll unpack those things more. We're not just gonna leave that right there. But for now, as we focus on like self-evaluating ourselves and kind of approaching this from a space of like stepping into it from a space of vulnerability and humility and being okay with it, and knowing that like where we are now is we're loved. Like the position is we are loved. And so let's take those steps forward. So we've talked about the why. We know. We know why we want to do this, right? Christ loves us. Let's get closer to that ideal. That starting point is less scary when we understand that we're starting from a place of acceptance, a place of love, a place of grace. That is easier to start from, is starting that journey from a place where we're not gonna get shot down. Makes it easier, in my opinion. So we know where that starting point is. So I want to give you two tools, really, to kind of try to do this task. Give you two tools to start self-evaluating. The first is going to be an inventory. This is a really helpful way of just kind of looking at our lives in bullet points, but carve out some time, sit down in a coffee shop or something, and just work through your habits. Think about how you spend your money, how you spend your time. What does your calendar look like? What kind of language do you use when you talk about others? What kind of language do you use when you talk about yourself? How much time and effort do you spend on spiritual formation? How much time do you spend in prayer? How much time do you spend in scripture, in fasting, in Sabbath, in solitude? How much time do you devote to like pulling your life towards Jesus? A helpful tool to this too, and I know I've probably talked about money too much, but a helpful tool is to like sit down in either a budgeting app or look at your bank statements and things like that and literally see where you're spending your money and time on. Look at your calendars, mark down what you're spending your money and time on. And I know kids get in the instance and they complicate things, right? The thing to focus on here is not to write it down as, I wish I would have done more X. I could do better at Y. That's not what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to see where we are currently. We're trying to get a snapshot, a picture into our own lives. Where do we currently sit? How are we currently positioned? That's the point. This is not a self-correcting exercise. This is a self-examining exercise. The second tool, there will be a link in the description below, is going to be John Wesley's 22 questions. Wesley used these questions in a number of ways, but one of the key ones was self-reflection. And let me tell you, they hit a little hard. They hit deep. They don't pull punches. Question 4 is literally, can I be trusted? These questions by design are difficult. They are hard. They will be vulnerable questions for you to answer. And it may take days. It may take weeks to work through all of them, and that's okay. We've talked about how there are baby steps in this process. You're not gonna be perfect all the way up front. These things are not meant to give you shame, but to give you a clear picture of where you sit currently and how you can start taking steps to get to the ideal. Approaching these with the understanding that this may take time, that this may take literally weeks, is okay. It is not about winning. There is no race to be run. Whoever gets there first doesn't get a prize. Move through it slowly. If it takes you one question a day and journal through that, or if it takes you a question a week and you're just, the whole week is you spent journaling over that one question, that is okay. But work through them. Challenge yourself. Ask yourself these vulnerable things. Be humble in that. And understand that the more honest you are with yourself, the better starting point you will have. I really want you to remember two things as you begin to work through these though. As you begin to take these two tools and try to work through them, remember that first, you are loved. If your answer to question number 4 is no, I can't be trusted, that's okay for right now. I hope you feel Christ pulling you into his character and not feeling like you will always be untrustworthy. When you feel that pull, that's okay. Lean into it. Where he takes you, he takes you. Let him pull you. If you're feeling convicted by it, that's okay. It's by design. It is okay to feel those feelings. It is not wrong. It is not bad. Start from a position of you are loved and then work through these. And second thing is baby steps. Expect that as you work through these things, it will challenge you. It will be contrary to some parts of your own character. Again, that's okay. Don't come in with the expectation that you are going to be exactly on par with everything there. These are just tools. This is not the ideal. We'll get there. These are tools to look at where you are currently. It's okay. And remember, take your time, baby steps, one step at a time. Jesus will walk that journey with you. Your only task is to keep moving through it. That's that. So I turned the camera on again and I did the things and I said the stuff. This time I did it in front of books. If you enjoyed whatever this was, I have a hard time taking my own self seriously, so that's fine. If you enjoyed whatever this was, if you enjoyed this content, please follow, do the subscribing, comment, all the things. It's always valuable. I always enjoy talking with people. Again, I'm extroverted, let's do this. But remember, nuanced conversations, that's where we like to sit. If you feel like sharing this, share it. If you hated it and you think I'm stupid, or I'm just flat out wrong, that's also fine too. Feel free to dislike it, comment. Nuanced conversations only though. That is how I roll. But either way, you are loved, and I hope to see you next time.